My name is David Silva, and I have been forgiven. Well, I grew up in Humble Park, Division, Kedzie, Spalding, that area. Growing up in Humble Park it wasn't easy. It was kind of rough, but it was. I wouldn't trade it for the world because it's what made me. Well, as a child, I grew up with both of my parents, my mom and dad, so I wasn't that really too much out in the streets so fast, but I was a good kid at first. I went to church. My parents, my dad took me to church, and I just chose my routes, and just was a knucklehead for a little while. Well, yeah, we rode bikes, we stole bikes too. We did a lot of mischievous things, especially. But I grew up too fast because I jumped in the streets too fast. To be honest with you, and I remember stealing the radio and from a car, and then we took that we sold it, bought an ounce of weed, and we flipped. We flipped it. That was really the beginning of it all. To be honest with you, that was really the beginning of it all. Well, I want to say that maybe 15, about 15, 14, around there. It was really much like my parents. My dad worked. He took care of us, but it was just he only did as much as he could, and obviously, we weren't as wealthy, so it's like I wanted things as I growing up, and it was just like I would just see the neighborhood, and you would see the older heads, just getting money. They out in the street, so it was just like that was the beginning of it, like the greed, I believe, like the greed of just wanting more things, just as you've seen others have it, but we couldn't afford it, so it's like I couldn't blame my dad because he did more than enough. He took care of us. We had a place to stay, food to eat. He made sure we was all clothed. And it wasn't what we wanted as far as like clothing. We were still in Payless and stuff like that. But he did as best he could. So it was all I blame myself. I don't never blame my parents. Everything that I went through and I've chosen in my life was because of me. My choices. So my choice was to go get it myself. Bonafide hustler. A memory that I have is, my dad one time was playing he was playing like the little machines, and he had hit for some money, and he came home, and it was me, my mother, my sister, and he just came home with a bunch of dollar bills, and he was throwing it at us, and we were just having fun and enjoying each other company, and it was good times. The thrill, like once you jumped off the porch, it was, to be honest, it was amazing. Like, it was just the thrill of just knowing you got away with certain things, and just being able to get shit, like getting things for free. That was a thrill. Well, I blame myself first and foremost because it was my choice. But the neighborhood that I came up on, it was like that was almost like the right thing to do. Everybody that was outside was committing crimes, so it just felt right as far as like my surroundings. Not a good one. Now, I was probably a good student till like maybe fifth, sixth grade, and then after that, it was just like I wasn't too bad. But then high school was crazy. High school, it was just I was already I started getting money early in high school, and it was just that the money always came in between everything. As far as like why go to school when I'm already checking. Oh my sister. It was good. It was good. My sister was a good sister. She's always been a good sister. Like we did the teasing and all that stuff, but she was my she was my older sister. We had a good relationship. We would fight, like normal brother and sister. But she's always been a good sister to me. Like always played that because she's older than me. She's about 6 years older than me, so she's always had played that motherly instinct. But at the same time, it was almost like we got to a stage where it was almost like 'cause she was grown already, and I was still kind of a kid, and it was almost like I was a single child. Man, a good memory with my sister. Um, we was in Puerto Rico, and we snuck on my grandfather's house, and we had a skateboard, and it was her bright idea to put me on a skateboard and slide me down the hill. So I mean, like a little brother, like an idiot. um, she put me on that skateboard, and I scratched up my hand real bad, and I remember I started crying, but my mom was still asleep, so my sister was still trying to. We ran to my grandfather's house after I busted my shit. Like we ran to my grandfather's house, and she was trying to clean me and trying to get me to be quiet, stop crying. But my mom caught us anyways, and she was mad. She was real mad. Yeah, we used to, man, memories with my grandpa, man. I used to love going with my grandfather. Used to walk to the supermercado all the time, and we used to walk to the other store. And my grandfather always, I was always with my grandfather. We was either uh cleaning the yard, and my grandfather had like a bunch of like vegetation. He had like batatas and all that stuff. He guayaba, palo guayaba. So we would clean it, and we would take some down, clean the garden. And my grandma too, my dad's mom. They actually lived across the street from each other, and I would go stay with my grandpa, which is my mom's dad, and he was more of he was his house wasn't up to date. My grandmother, which was my dad's mom, she was more up to date, but she would be across the street. So I wouldn't go in my grandfather's washroom. Man, if you've been to Puerto Rico in those times, well, I mean, he's still now even. There's some houses that the washrooms look crazy scary. So I would never went inside my grandfather's washrooms. I would stay at my grandfather's house and cross the street to take a shower, use the washroom, all of that. First time I smoked weed, I think I was in like sixth grade, seventh grade, or something like that. But I was just like smoking, and I didn't even know what I was doing. My cousin, my cousin taught me how to smoke. I think, and that's the first time I really got high. It was I was maybe like 10, 11. My cousin taught me how to smoke. She was older than me, so she taught me how to smoke, and that's when I really got high the first time. Man. It was. I mean, it was nice. It was smoking weed. I thought I was smoking weed already a long time ago. I just wasn't doing it right. I thought I was playing high. Man, I wasn't high for real. Well, I was like with with a lot of gang members. I wasn't really official, but I was hanging out. But I was really just trying to find my niche. I was hanging out with other people that were in a different other gang, but I wasn't really banging nothing. I was just really trying to figure it out where I was at, and then, you know, of course, I went by from where I grew up at, and I got in the streets, and it was really more of a money thing. Like, it was we started hustling, and they didn't like it. We was making money, so they ain't like that. So it was just like, a lot of them already knew me because I grew up there. So it was just like, a lot of them approaching me, and went from there. Man, look, I was already making money, and I was already kind of playing with guns and stuff. But like, we were just a bunch of us. It was a bunch of us. Just we weren't really gang banging. We was making money. We was still, doing what we did as kids and stuff. But we was playing with guns too, and it was a little bit of both because it was we was already making money, so it was just that, and then when you got in there and you really started banging, and you really I I personally fell in love with it. It was a family. back then was a lot of fighting. So we was always fighting. We was fighting in the neighborhood. We was fighting everywhere. We was always fighting. So it was really not like a gang. It was like a gang beating or something like that. It was just, man, look, you mess with one of us, we was all beating your ass. That's really where it went to. We used to march because we from the park, so there's two sides of the park. So it's like it was our side and the folk side. So it was like we would march from one side to the other and just first people that was hanging out, we was on them, and we would tear it up and then run back or run. You know what I'm saying? Or shots rang out and then you had to run back. Like 17 or 17, around 17 or 18 or something like that. We used to Puerto Rican festival was the time to shine, bro. So it was just one of them. I remember we was out there just chilling. It was fast. All the guys deep. We ended up marching to the park. Back then, you would able to come into the festival from all types of angles of the park because they wouldn't close it. So we came in from our side, from Sacramento side, and we was in there. We was in there for a while though. Honestly, it was surprising. We was in there for a little while, and then of course, you got the folks, you got the Cobras, the Dragons, all of them in there. And one thing led to another. We walking through there. Of course, we looking for it. So, man, we ended up tearing that. But honestly, I remember that we were at the. It was they had a juke booth. That's how it started. We was at the juke booth in the park back then, and we was all in there. We was deep, and the guys was chilling, and everybody come in there. You saw the girls there, and then we just was in there, and then man, one thing led to another. A couple gang signs, and it was over. It went up, so we tore it up. But we had to run back too after that because it's like, man, we was just the festivals on the folk side, so we basically in their side of town. So you got to run back after we tore it up. We got to run back. So it was pretty cool because you got chased by the police. That was one like an early one that I remember. Actually, no, I never. Surprisingly, I got locked up, but I didn't make it to the audio home at all. I didn't make it to the audio home. Yeah, precincts and then parents go get you or something like that. Honestly, it was actually my boy's mom would get us, would end up getting my parent, because man, my dad was strict. My dad would kick my ass. He was I was in the streets, but I was still getting my ass whooped at home. My dad wasn't playing around, but it was just like, it came to a point where it was just like he couldn't tame me. So it was just like, I had to learn the hard way. He used to always tell me that you're gonna learn the hard way. Well, when I was younger, as a minor, I wasn't really going to jail like that as a minor. But once I hit like 17, 18, it was back and forth, in and out, in and out. I remember my first like case where I couldn't bond out and I couldn't get out. They had said I had like 32 or 36 arrests already at that time. I was, so it was in and out a lot. When I was going in and out, it was just I was selling weed. I was, just mob action, batteries and stuff like that. It was that back and forth. And then I was getting caught with work and, bonding out. I was on a lot of bonds. The worst thing that could happen to me was, I had money. I had money to bond out. And that was because that made you almost the feeling of untouchable. And, you could just do whatever you wanted to do, and there was no repercussions for what you was doing, because it was like, if you paid the lawyer long enough, they was gonna drop it, dismiss it, give you probation, something. It was just coming in and out until for a while until I'd say till I was like maybe like 19, 20. No, not I'm lying. I was going in and out for a while, and because I had caught a gun case, they gave me probation for it. And that was like, and then I was just catching out domestics and stuff like that too. And then I want to say 23. Yeah, 23. That's when I called. I had a rappy. We had got caught. I was like one of the first people was charged with with UUW by a gang member. A UUW is basically a gun case, unlawful use of a weapon. I mean, for that, I was just we were just carrying it. We got caught with it. I did. I fought it. We fought it. Me and my rap, we fought it for a year, and yeah, about a year, and then we ended up beating it. And I was one of the chiefs out there at for the land for my block for quite a while. I was one of the youngest ones too. It was almost like a, now that I'm a little wiser. It was almost like an evil spirit that felt like, that made me feel like I was just, it was like feeding my ego. And it was like, I loved it. I loved gangbang. I loved the whole thing. Like, and it was at them times that's all I knew. Really. Just hustling, getting money with the guys on the block, and that was really. Stop it, dude. I definitely do, man. I definitely do, dude. I was 19 years old with a 77 Bonneville, canary yellow, be on 24s. I was acting an ass, bro. I was acting an ass, man. I'm telling you, I remember that was when I had left the house already. I was on my own, but I was hustling in the neighborhood. So, my stomping grounds was my mom's house, And I remember my dad telling me one time, like, he told me straight up, like, dude, because he never really drug deal, but I mean, he wasn't dumb, and he knew what was going on. And he was like, dude, you're just too flashy. Like, the point of doing it is to not let them people know that you're doing it. And it was just like, I had a van on 22s. I had a old school on 24s. And then I'm saying 24s when the biggest thing they had was the 22s. And people were doing 23s, and I had 24s on my joint. I was acting ass. Man, I was dumb. Hell no. I jacked. I was saving it up and just holding it, saving it up and, making dumb purchases that you look back on it and you're like, man, you're an idiot. But yeah, I made some dumb decisions. I was bonding people out left and right. It was crazy because, man, it was crazy. No, I actually my first son's mom, I met her in high school. We were high school. We went to high school together. That's my son and my daughter with her. We met in high school, but it was like, I feel like I almost corrupted her too. So, as far as like, the life that I was living. And she was, she's seen a lot of stuff that I was doing in the streets. And it was, I kind of corrupted her because she ended up, being as ghetto as me and doing, some dumb shit too with me. So, but I was with her, and then I met Gio, my wife right now. I met her. Also, she lived in the neighborhood. I met her actually while I was out selling drugs, to be honest with you. While I was hanging out, actually gangbanging on the block. She actually walked up, approached me. I was in the neighborhood and we were just hanging out. I think it was like a fest outside. It was Puerto Rican fest, and we were just hanging out. We was on Kedzie. We was on Kedzie and Division, doing the whole flag gangbanging shit. And she walked up to me with her sister, and she hollered at me. She hates that story, but it's the truth. She be trying to say she didn't, but she do. She knew, man. She lived across the street. I had a punto right across the street from her mom's house, man. I was, that was a crazy part too, because her mom really disliked me just because. I mean, I wouldn't have liked me either. I understand it now. Because I wasn't nothing good for her daughter. But yeah, she used to watch me hustle, I guess, and then she approached me, and then it went from there. Started like that, and it just went from there. Grew from there. I want to say it always like built it up a little bit more. My last bid was like the most solid that whereas like we grew as you actually grow into like as partners as far you grow into that. But we were it was the first bid was it was more of a challenging because it was almost I was dealing with multiple women and that wasn't good for her either, like and that actually was like a strength because it was like it made me stronger because I had to deal with certain things, and it made her stronger because she had to deal with certain things. In my first bid, she's still here. I'm grateful to God for that, man. Man, I'll tell you one thing, dog. That's a strong woman. I'll tell you that. She's a very strong woman. I tip my hat to her. Just because, man, just I don't even know like how to even express the love that I feel she has for me for just putting up with all that. Well, I went to the county. Then while I was in the county fighting, I was out on bond for a drug case already. So I ended up going to I caught the other case and I had no bond. So I had to fight the gun case with my rappy. And we beat that case. So I ended up taking time for the drug case. And I actually had all the time in already because I was sitting in the county fighting one. So I just dressed in, dressed out. And I came home off of that. I was on parole for that one. And I'm still in the streets acting crazy. I ended up catching a murder. And I was on parole, so I had to go do my parole time. And it ended up doing my parole time in NRC, and then they shipped me out to Lawrenceville, and then I came back. I had to fight the body, which was about 4 years almost. Man, what you mean? That was when it got real. Like, and I'm telling you, I was going back and forth, in and out of jail. And like I said, it didn't really like register in me. Like, yeah, I just came back a better criminal. But when I caught that murder, it was just, reality hit. Like, it smacked me like a ton of bricks because it was just like I was faced with, they offered me 45 years, so you figure it out. I mean, I didn't think I was ever gonna make it home just out of that. And man, it definitely got real. It was a really like a dumb situation, to be honest with you. Like, it's you can look it up, but it was a really dumb situation that shouldn't even have gotten to that. Like, certain individual lost his life, and and we lost, because my rappy killed himself too. So it's just like, we lost ours and we lost our freedom too. But it was like it was a bad situation for everybody, My daughter was just born. My second daughter was just born. I had another daughter, which was even crazier. So it was like I was dealing with that, dealing with home, and it was just like honestly I was losing control out of my life. Like, when my dad passed away, it was just like, I just feel like my life just went downhill because it was like, even though like I was still doing my thing, like my dad always kept me like, whereas like, I would still try to hide almost, the things that I was still doing, even though I was a grown man already out the house and everything. I would just still kind of had that little respect for my dad. And my dad passed away. So when he passed away, it was just like everything went like downhill as far as like just was no more stability in my life. And it was just like I got heavy into the drugs. I got heavy into, drinking. I got heavy into just gang banging. I got heavy into all of that. We popping pills every day, popping ecstasy pills every day. So it was just, I was really deep into that, and just life wasn't good at all. And just a lot of my success now that I'm grateful to God for is just, it's almost like me just trying to pay it back to my family that I know I put them through so much throughout them days. Because I look back at myself, at who I was back then, and I wasn't a good individual. I feel like I led my brothers to destruction, to be honest with you. Now that you come back to look at it, it's like, yeah, I did. I led my guys to just certain shit that I wish I never put myself through. But I mean, I'm thankful to God that I went through, honestly. I mean, altogether, I want to say like maybe it was well, in and out about 6 years, almost damn near all together with everything. About 6 years. My last one was almost 4. Fighting the body, just fighting my murder. Just I was I sat there for a long time. I really did. Like, I ended up. But I'm so thankful that it is my last one, and it was the longest one. But it was just, I'm thankful for that, because if it wasn't for that, because I had God, and my dad, my parents always introduced me to God when I was a kid, and I just went my own ways. So the day I turned myself in, I mean, well, let's just go back to, I was on the run for, when the whole thing happened, like the whole thing situation happened, and obviously there were, like everybody was blaming, like they were putting names out there and everything, and of course my name came up, obviously from being from that land, from being from the block. So and it was easy for the police to also pinpoint me, because they knew that was my area, that was my side. So it was they actually I actually went to my mom's house, and man, I still remember, it's like 6 in the morning, 7 in the morning. Man, I actually go inside my mom's house, and it was just, I knew I was gonna be on the run out the door. So I go to my mom's house. Well, I was right by my mom's house, so I run to my mom's house. I pick up like shit. I had like maybe 4 or 5 pounds of kush inside my mom's house, maybe like a half a brick and shit. I picked all that up, put it in a garbage bag, jumped in my car, and took off. And it was just, I drove to the little spot that I knew, dropped the car off, and made it to my crib where I was at. I remember Gio was sitting at home ready to go to work. That's how early it was. She was going to work, and she knew something was wrong, and with no hesitation, she said, "I ain't going to work. I'm going with you." So we left. We got out of there, and I was on the run for like maybe a good 4 or 5 weeks, and they made it impossible for my family. Like, when I'm telling you, them U.S. Marshals were following my mom, following my girl's mom. They were following everybody. They were really looking for me, and I was just put up in different hotels day in, day out, watching First 48, scared of motherfucker. Scared as hell, man. So yeah, I was running back and forth, and then after a couple days of running, I was like, man, I got to put a plan together. So call the lawyer, let them know. We figured out that they were actually looking. Well, because at first I was just on a run, but then when they started hitting the doors, I knew they were looking for him. So they started, they hit my house, they hit my mom's house, they hit my mother-in-law's house. Man, they hit my sister's house, they hit everybody's house. So yeah, I was on the run. We called the lawyer. The lawyer ended up I showed up. I showed up. Shout out to Gail. Gail Shore, man. Great lawyer, dude. I ended up going to her, and we put a plan together. She was like, man, you got to turn myself in. I was like, turn myself in. I was like, man, but it was just like I had to give it some time. So we gave it some time for a little bit, and I just got tired of running. I really just did. It's a tiring. It rains a toll on you, and it's like then it was like my girl was running with me for a little bit. Then it was just like, man, I sent her on her way, and it was just like I was running by myself. One of my guys were jumping in the cars with my guys and stuff like that, and I was running by myself. So that's when it started like really digging into me, where it's like, man, I got to do something. I got to turn myself in. Then they were harassing my mom, so I just wanted it to stop. They were harassing my sister, so I wanted it to stop. So we ended up turning myself in. So we set up a date. It was crazy because we set up a date to freaking to turn ourselves in, and it was right after July 4th. It was right after July 4th. I was at my sister's house. I went and stopped by my sister's house real quick. Bro, the people showed up to that house like, I want to say like 30 minutes after I left. They were pinging my phone and stuff. Man, it was, but they showed up to the house, and then the next day I turned myself in. So, man, that turned myself in early in the morning. I remember we dropped off my son and my daughter to, I believe, my girl's mom's, and then my girl drove me to Belmont and Western with my lawyer, and man, turned myself in. And it was like, just the ride there was just so nerve-wracking, because it's like, you're almost like, I knew like deep down inside, like, my mind was psyching me out, where I'm like, I bond out, or, I ain't do shit. So I ain't got nothing to worry about or something like that, but it was just like deep down inside, I knew I was going to sit down for a while. Deep down inside, I knew it. And that's definitely what happened. Belmont Western is the station, which is on the top. They have the like central booking, or not central booking, is it's basically like when they got you on the investigation for murders or crimes. They got you on the investigation. You up there. So that's where I was at. Like, I turned myself into them, because I was still not being charged with the murder. I went up there. So of course they wanted to talk to me, but I invoked my rights with my lawyer, didn't say anything, and turned myself in. So they just kept me in a room. Man, that room I was in there, it was just a room. Like, it was just a room, and it was just like I was in there for so long, dude. I didn't realize I was in there for 2 days until I actually left. But it was just because it was just sleeping, waking up, and it was just sleeping and waking up, and then like they're opening the doors. Man, I was in there. I think they fed me like twice in there, and it was like just bologna sandwich here, threw it in there, and they would just open the door here, boom. So you wouldn't even see nothing, because. And there was no washroom in there. So this is a room, literally a room. But I was in there waking up back and forth. But there was a mat. They gave you a little mattress and shit. And there was a bench. But I had the mattress on the floor already. And I was dozing off, trying to just pass the time, waiting to see. Because now it's like, you're anticipating, like, you're going to charge me, or what's going to happen, So I was there. I was sitting there, and I remember something that will forever be in my heart. Like, I was laying down on the mattress, and man, I'm praying to God. Like, I'm I'm really trying to cope with the situation. So I'm praying to God, asking God to help me out, give me something. And I swear I've been in there for damn near like a day already, and I was laying down in the same spot, and I didn't see it. But it's like right after, like, I got through from like talking to God, it was just like I look underneath the bench and it says trust in God. And that was like, that was one of them signs where it was just like, but like I'm still not really ready for it. But I know that God's with me, but I'm not ready for it. I'm not ready to even talk to God that much. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I wasn't ready. I was still, my mind was still in the streets and everything was like, so I wasn't ready. But that's something that, in my journey, now that I've gone through the journey, like I look back on it and it was like one of those, like, he's been with me the whole time, man. I just wasn't opening my heart for him. I was in an interrogation room and it was, man, they came, knocked on the door finally. Knocked on that door, said, get up. They cuffed me. And it was, man, I'll never forget his asshole ass cop. Like it was his fault. He got a hard on for that. Like he looked me in my face and he's like, because I've dealt with him before. Like he was always messing with us in the hood, in the neighborhood. So he just had that hard on for me. So it was like his pleasure to be like, oh, David Silva, you've been charged with first-degree murder. And, to take me downstairs. So they took me downstairs and they fingerprinted me. They booked me. I sleep again in there to the next day. The next morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, the paddy wagon comes for you. Man, paddy wagon there, bright and early, coming to get you. So they pile you up like shit, like cats and dogs. Anybody that done took that ride, they know. Man, they pile you up in that paddy wagon and you're on your way to the county. Man, you get to the county. I ain't been in the county by the grace of God in so long. I mean, I don't know what's their process now, but back then was you got to the county and man, you went through some bullshit first. Like as soon as you got out the bus, they strip you down. You got to take everything off. They screaming at you. You got to take your shoes off, rip them off. All of that stuff. And then you go through. They basically take you through searching you, and then from there you go see the judge. They put you upstairs in another little bull. They pile you up in another little bullpen, and then you wait to see the bond judge. So you would say we there for a while. My lawyer actually showed up. Well, my lawyer already, she knew she was coming. She knew I was being charged and all that. So she met me in the bullpen, and she let me know. Like I was to be honest with you, I didn't show it, but I was scared. I was scared as hell because it was just like, damn, I charged with a 9-1, a murder. It's like it was a scary situation for me, but I held it together as much as I could. We went and seen the judge, and then the judge out the door, she didn't give me a bond. She didn't give me a bond, and I had a parole hold already because I was on parole, so it was no getting out. So I knew that already out the door. I wasn't getting out because I had a parole hold. So I had a parole hold. We go through we see the judge. Boom, we go back. They book us into the jail. And then you go through a long ass process as far as like from bullpen to bullpen. You seen the doctors, you seen the psychs, that you go into another bullpen, and you going through the motions. You going through all of that. No, man. At that time they had the dick doctor no more. Back then they used to do some wild shit, man. They used to freaking, man. I seen them. I was like probably one of the last people to see the guy, but yeah, one of the last generations to actually see that. But it was through that process, you just see the doctor, they make sure you clean and all that. But back then was like, man, they'll shove a fucking thing in fucking. I don't know if I can I say it here? Okay, well, they would shove a piece of something in your penis just to. I don't know what type of test this was, but that shit would hurt. And but not the last time. The last time I went through, they weren't doing that no more. They already had the lawsuit and all that. They weren't going through that, so it was just you see the doctor, you see the psych. They make sure they want to know if you want to kill yourself or you don't, or if you want to harm people, harm anybody else. You go through that, and then yeah, you start getting your uniform. They clothe you out, you clothe in. Well, yeah. You leave processing, and then obviously, they categorizing you to see where you're going, depending on have you been here a long time or what kind of what kind of crime you got. So obviously I had a murder, so obviously I'm going to max on that one. So I mean they took me to Division 1 at the time. We went to Division 1. I actually went to a writ deck because I was on parole, so they knew I was leaving anyways. I was gonna probably see the judge in a couple of days, and then after that I had to go to the joint. I had to go do my parole time. So I was on the writ deck for like maybe 2 weeks. I was in Division 1, and then Division 1 was cool. It was Division 1 was Division 1. Those that been there, like Division 1 was still ran by the inmates. So I left out of Division 1. Well, they came. I seen the judge. They basically I got shipped out. I got shipped out from the county, from the Cook County, which is on 26 in California. I got shipped out to NRC, which is in Joliet. NRC is like basically whenever you go into the joint, once you get sentenced to the penitentiary and you got to go, everybody has to go to NRC first. So NRC NRC is horrible. NRC, but so I went to NRC. NRC, I was there. Actually, they didn't even have rooms, so we were sleeping in bullpens for like maybe the whole weekend. We were there, and we was in NRC, and actually, I seen this but this guy that I dealt with in the streets, previously before going in, and we was hustling together. Big, he was a heavy dude in the streets. So I seen him. We in NRC. We in NRC. I see him. We talking through the bullpens. Whatever. Boom. I let him. We talking about our cases and all that shit. Boom. So finally, they make room after like the 3 days of just sleeping in the bullpens. They make room and they start shipping us to the houses. That because NRC is like the intake is just a bunch of bullpens, but then you going into the different galleries, which is the houses. You go in the houses, so it's A through Z all the way from. So each A is one house, B is another house, C is another house. So each house has 3 galleries, which is 3 floors, and is basically 1 through 14. I want to say so. It's 14 cells in each gallery. So it's 14 cells in each floor, and there's 2 inmates to each gallery. So they sent me all the way to Z house, which was like at the end of it, all the way at the end. I went down their way, and it was crazy because it's like, I ended up being in the C house, and I was there. I got there. My cellie left like 2 days later. He left, and it's like I'm in NRC, and it's like usually if you in NRC, you get one cellie and one leaves, the other one come. It's just like that. But I didn't have a cellie for like 2 days, and it was weird because it was just like But I was there, and guess who comes rolling in to my buddy that I actually seen at in the bullpens that I was dealing with in the streets. So I see him. And he's coming up. He sees, oh, what's up? We geeked. We're in the cell, whatever. So he comes in the cell, and it was crazy because I didn't realize that he was already in the Bible. Like he was already in the Bible. I was like, I'm telling you, I was like, I'm still running away from God. Kind of, and it was just lining up exactly to where God needed me to be at, and he out of the thousands and thousands of inmates, he ends up showing up with his Bible, and he starts preaching the word, but I'm still kind of halfway hearing him, halfway not. And so we were there for a couple days, and then he had the bottom bunk. I hate the bottom bunk. I was all my cellies know I like the top bunk. I don't like sleeping underneath, so I'll take the top bunk. So I'm on the top bunk. He gets up. And he was doing his push-ups and stuff, and then I'm gazing. I'm gazing, but he just looks at me and he tells me like he's like, man, you're tired. I can see it in your face, dog. You're tired. I'm like, look at him like tired. He's like, yeah, you tired of living that life you living. And when I tell you, like, man, I felt something inside of me that I ain't never felt in my life. Like, really, like, tears just started rolling. And just tears started rolling. And, you know, he was like, it kind of took him in all a little bit, but he, man, immediately just started praying with me. And that was, I want to say, like, that was when it was like that moment. That was like that pivoting moment, I want to say. I was like that pivoting moment a little bit. I don't want to say I was still like, mine was right, because I still was kind of like my street ways was still, but that was the pivoting moment right there. That was the pivoting moment, because I remember in his Bible, he carried this piece of paper. Well, he had this piece of paper in the back, and then he was like, man, I want you to read this. I want you to read this. And then it was basically like a prayer, but I was basically like relinquishing myself to God, where as far as, you know, I asked for forgiveness, and, you know, and I felt it. I felt, because I stopped going to church because I just felt like I couldn't, like God didn't know what I was doing, you know, like I was hiding for something, you know, but it was, that's why I didn't go to church. But it was at that moment, like when I accepted God and Jesus Christ in my life, that was when I felt like, you know, that doesn't have to define who I am, who I'm going to be. So that was a pivoting moment right there. Not in the beginning. I'm saying, like, that was the pivoting moment. Then it was, I went through some stages where I was dealing, like, I was still going through I was still doing my parole time, so I was getting shipped. You know, I went to Lawrenceville, got back, went to the birdcage, came back. So I was dealing with different cellies, but it was just like that was all supposed to be part of my life. Like that, I needed all of them different people that God put me across, because it's like I went from there, then he got shipped out, then I had another celly, which was into like witchcraft and all types of stuff. It was like a weird dude, but it was like I actually learned from him a lot. Like, you know, not really learn from him, but I was still so curious. I was curious. I was just curious. I wanted to read everything I could. So I read some of his stuff, and it was like, you know, it was cool, but it was just like, you know, you didn't feel it, and it was like it wasn't it. So it was like I was still going through that. Then I got shipped out. My celly was Muslim, and it was like I went through that. I read the Quran a lot. You know what I'm saying? I was really trying to explore like what it was. You know, then I got shipped back to the birdcage. My celly had a double life. That was his sentence. He was already, and it was like that. That right there was like a humbling experience, because that man was so humble and real with me, like as far as like, and I see my future, where it's like if I continue to going that route, this is exactly what I would be at, you know. And he was just a humble dude, real cool dude, man. And I was able to see that aspect of man, just because I was so arrogant before I went in there. I was so freaking arrogant. I thought money could buy everything, and it was like that. That was just a very humbling experience, where it was just like, you know, I realized that money it wasn't it. Like, you know, that it wasn't it, you know. And because I had a lot, and everything got taken away from me. Everything got taken away from me. Literally everything. Everything. I mean, I was a dude at one point where, dude, in the beginning of when I got sentenced to, when I was doing my parole time, I was really trying to wrapped up to trying to save some money to bond myself out and do this and do that. And I was a dude that was out here flossing and doing all of this, and I had a PD, because we took we took the lawyer off. We took the lawyer off the retainer, just because trying to save some money. But I who would have thought? Like, it humbled me that much that it was like, dude, you thought you was invincible. Now you fighting a murder with a public defender, dude. And those that don't know what a public defender is, he works for the state, dog. So it was a very humbling experience. So it's just all those little aspects that I went through life. Well, not through life, but all the aspects that I went through in that time that I was locked up. I was supposed to go through all of that. Just and just to see the different people, just so I was sure of what I wanted and what I wanted to do. And the love of Jesus Christ. Well, like I said, after I went through my whole explore, I did my time for my parole time, and then they shipped me back to the county to go fight my new case, which was the murder case. Um, I was in the county. I went back to Division 1. I met up with the guys. We were deep in Division 1, so we were just back in the world almost type. So I really wasn't, like really I was 1 foot in. I still pray here and there, but I would, I was still kind of like in the world. And I ended up, we was on deck. I ended up actually going to, we got on deck with all my guys, with my rappy, with the guys from the blog, and then we ended up, you do hooch. We did some hooch, and we got drunk. I ended up getting into it with one of the lieutenants, and they kicked my ass and shipped me to Division 9. And then when I went to Division 9, I was there. I was there for like 2 days, and then I went to the hole. I was on deck for like 2 days, and then I went to the hole. I was in the hole. I ended up getting out the hole, and man, look how God works. He sent me to the one of the COs that knew me from Division 1 was there, and he was like, man, Silva, you're always a cool dude. I don't know why you in the hole and all that, because I was at those times I was already kind of older. Older than a lot of the guys that were there. So he's like, man, you always chilled. So he's like, man, I'm gonna do you a favor. I'm gonna send you to the old man's deck. And at first I'm like, nah, I ain't trying to go to old man deck. But then he was like, dude, you're gonna be chill. You're gonna be able to just calm, cool, and collective. So I'm like, I bet. So I ended up going to the old man deck, and I went in a cell with Kevin, man, and he was fighting. He was fighting a murder to himself. But he was man so deep into God that it was just like I just knew, like once I got into the cell with him, it was like I just knew, like, man, God's trying to get a hold of me, and it was just like let me, like I felt the conviction more. As far as in my heart, I was convicted more, and that's when I was like, I started doing like Bible study with him, with Kevin. We would do Bible study. We would talk about the God, and that's how that was my journey. And then I got into a routine where it was like I was read the Bible in the morning, workout. I got into a nice routine, and that really like draw me closer and closer to God. Just and then I remember one day, like I had when something happened. I don't know what. I don't remember exactly. I think I came back from court, and I was just like bummed out. I came back from court, and I was bummed out. And I remember just like I was in a cell by myself because my cellie had went to court, but he had went to court for farther. So if you're in the county, you got to catch that late bus. You ain't coming back till like maybe 8, 9 o'clock. So I had got there before him, but I was there in my cell by myself, and it was just like, man, I was praying back in my word, and it was just like something like really broke down in me where it was just like, I started crying, and I just started praying, and from that moment I felt like I was just like I had let go of the old me. At that moment, I felt like I let go of the old me that I was still holding on to. As far as like I was holding on to it because more of the just I want to say like the the inner kid in me, the yeah, the kid in me that really wanted all the stuff and wanted to be, the coolest dude on the block, that childish person of me. And I was holding on to that because it was just like, it was almost like if I let it go, I wouldn't be who I was. Like I wouldn't be me anymore. That's how I almost felt. And I finally at that moment I let it go because I realized that God has so much more for me. So much more. I mean, I'm a sinner now to this day. Like, the only perfect man was Jesus Christ. But I mean, my heart at that moment, like my heart was because God saved me because he knew my heart. He saved me because he knew my heart. He knew I was in the streets, but I wasn't doing nothing to people that really didn't deserve it, or well, maybe I was doing some dumb shit too. But I mean, he knew my heart. He knew where he knew he knew my heart. So he actually he spared me because of that. He spared me because of that, and it like, I think that like before that, like my heart was like hard. Like I had put like this cover over it, like this rock over it, where it was just like I was so cold to a lot of shit. And at that moment it was like, God was just working in me. He's working in me now. But I mean, at that moment, that's where I kind of felt like I made up my mind as far as like, I don't want to be that person anymore. I didn't want to be that person anymore that I was. Yeah, man, yeah, they were going through it, and that was a lot of my prayers for really where I really was praying for, because I wasn't really praying for myself because I knew I could take care of myself. Like as far as me, I've always seen myself as that as lesser than others, and I'm just that's just who I'm programmed to be. Uh, but so I was really praying on my mom and my sister and my wife that were out here. They were, man, my girl was going through it, losing an apartment, losing everything we had, struggling with these kids. My mom losing our house when we was younger, you know, and that my dad left us before he passed away. She lost that house, and it was lights were off. There was a lot of things they were going through, man, and I couldn't really do too much. But I mean, at the same time, it was like I still remember a time where, you know, I'm calling my mom and, she's making it seem like everything's okay, like she's okay. But she just really didn't want to tell me. But my little brother was younger at the time, and he was the one that actually was like, man, dude, we've been sitting here with no electricity, no hot water. And that broke me. That broke my heart, where it was just like, I had to make a couple phone calls to make that right. But by the grace of God, man, I was blessed with some good individuals that helped me out at the times, that owed me a couple dollars, and made sure my mom's lights and gas was on. But I mean, that was the type of things I was dealing with. That I was dealing. I wasn't even. I had the easy part because they were the ones that were out here dealing with it. They were dealing with them situations, man. My girl, sometimes not being able to make it to work because she ain't got gas money, stuff like that. Mind you, I if if you don't like God let me know it was him from the gate. We're just gonna keep it like that, dude. We're gonna keep it like that because I'm gonna tell you how I got out. Like it was funny because, well, it wasn't even funny. It was just like, mind you, I was in jail and I was going through it like it was getting, and a lot of my fellow brothers that were in the Bible, they kind of always reference that. They were like, when it's getting the toughest it's getting, that's when you're getting the closest. They always kept saying that. And it was like, I was at almost like a breaking point. I was like, man, I couldn't deal with just jail. I couldn't deal with it. Like I was contemplating suicide. It was getting rough. It was getting really tight on me. Like everything was like, it was almost felt like I was drowning. And I'm just praying to God. I keep continuing to pray and pray and pray and pray. But I'm not losing faith. I'm not losing faith because I'm before that I came to an understanding where I was content with whatever God had for me. And I was like, if I'm going to spend the rest of my life in jail, then that's what God needs me at. And I was content with that, but it was just getting so heavy on me. Like it was getting so heavy because it felt like what was going to happen. Like it was getting real heavy. And I had prayed, and I had two other rappies on my case. So it was me and two other rappies. And for you guys don't know, a rappie is my co-defendant. So I had two co-defendants with me. And I had a lawyer. Mind you, everything started working out his way because remember, I had a PD, like I said. But out of like thin air, to be honest with you, God provided. God provided, and God made a way. I got a lawyer, Mike Fulton, great lawyer too. Well, he actually had demanded for trial, but they just kept like stopping it. So I end up going to court, right? On the day I'm going to court, this is the last, you got 120 days when you demand for trial. So we're at like 100 and maybe like 118 or 119 or something like that. The 119th day or something like that. And we show up to court, and it's just like, when I get there, like I get this feeling in me, like a good feeling in me, where I'm like, man, but I don't know what's really mine. I've already been gone for almost three and some change. So I get this feeling, and I get into the court house, and they're having like some weird ass meetings and stuff. My lawyers, he hasn't even talked to me yet. So me and my rappies are in the back, like, man, what's going on? They ain't bringing us out. We thinking we're going to trial because we demanded for trial, so we're ready for trial. And man, they didn't have it enough to take it to trial. So mind you, they actually like slick rolled it because you got, I might be wrong on the days, but I know you have, I think it's 160 days when you're out. Like if you're free, you got 160 days to go to court when you demand. And when you're locked up, you only got 120 days. So because I was the only one that demanded trial, they knew they weren't ready for my rappies or us to go to trial. So we weren't taking it off. So what they did was the craziest thing, dude. They gave me a I bond on a murder. They gave me an I bond on a murder just so they can buy themselves that window time, that time from 120 to 160 days. So I literally went to court thinking I'm going to trial, to finding out that, dude, you're on your way home today, tonight, you know what I'm saying, on an I bond. Dude, what? Dude, it was crazy because it was like, I mean, like in the county, you've heard of it here and there. Like a couple of COs was like, yeah, we've heard. But it's like, it was unheard of. Like, what? I bond? What you talking? And it was crazy. And it was like, it was wild because it was like, and that's when I was like, man, God had a purpose for me. God had a purpose for me, and I know he still does. And, I know he's still working through me. But that's how I get out. I get out that day. Man, it was it was an amazing feeling just to be able to hug my kids, hug my mom, hug my girl. It was just like it was a crazy experience. But I get out, and then mind you, I'm out, but I'm still facing a murder. So now I'm out, but I'm almost like immediately get hit with the devil comes knocking immediately, man. He comes knocking immediately. Old friends start popping out of nowhere. You know, my name's still good in the streets, so of course, people here trying to give you this, give you that. And I started denying a lot of the things, like a lot of the work that people were trying to give me. Like, nah, I'm not on that. I didn't want it. I just knew that I was walking with God. So I knew that wasn't his way for me. And I mean, but mind you, I'm still battling because it's like I don't know if I'm going back to jail. Like I don't know what's going on because I'm still fighting a murder. So it's like I'm still going to court back and forth as I'm out, and my rappies are still locked up. Both of my rappies are still locked up because they didn't demand trial, so they're still locked up, and we're going to court together. So I'm showing up from the world, and they're coming from behind, from the back. So it was a wild ride. But man, by the grace of God, I remember going to court. Man, I remember nobody was able to make it, and it was like it was make or break time. So we was going to trial that day, and I knew that we went with a bench. So obviously the judge gonna give us a verdict. We knew we was getting our verdict that day. Well, we already had kind of went halfway through the trial. Yeah, I'm lying, because we had went through the trial, and we were going back and forth through the trial. My lawyer, shout out my lawyer, Mike Fulton, man. But he did an awesome job. But we had to come back for the verdict, which was from the judge. So mind you, nobody could have made it because everybody was going to court, and I honestly, I didn't even tell my girl or my mom or nothing like that. Like really, that it was the verdict day, because it was like they kind of knew, but they didn't know that it was going to be that day. I was almost just like I was preparing myself for the worst, where it was just like I didn't want to break nobody's heart. Man, if it was what it was, then they were going to snatch me up. I was going back. That's what. So I told my sister. My sister came with me, and my sister stood there with me. We actually they did a recess, and we went to the taco restaurant to eat, and it was me and my sister, and then we prayed together, because my sister, we prayed together, and by the grace of God, I was found not guilty, and that's when the weight was pulled out my shoulder, and I was able to live life again. Like I was able to plan for the future, and I started really planning for the future. But obviously, the devil come knocking. When you're doing good, the devil come knocking. So even though I was trying to do good, and I was still doing good, like money started getting tight. So one foot was back in the street. The other foot was I was working, but one foot was still back in the streets. So I mean, I dealt with that for a little while, and My oldest son got sick, and he was actually intubated. He couldn't breathe, so the machine was breathing for him. So I mean, I thought I was gonna lose my child. So I was going through it, and I was praying to God, and that was my cue as far as where I didn't want to be. Like I made up my mind at that moment where it was like, no, I'm gonna be something better, something better for my kids. Whereas I want them to be proud of me. I don't want them to look at me and be like, oh, what your dad does, and oh yeah, they don't really know what you do. They can't really say what you do, because obviously, So I wanted my kids to be proud of. I wanted my mom to be proud of me. So at that point, I prayed to God, and I asked God to please, man, save my child. I'm giving this up. I was letting it go, and man, by the grace of God, he took care of my son, and and I just let it go. I left at least the that hustle money. I left it alone, you know, and I just I just prayed on what was my next step. Well, I just to give back. It's like I just feel like it's my purpose of just to try to try to reach those kids that were just like me when I was a kid. Well, and I was doing bad, just to reach to them and not and them not have to go through all the pain and suffering I had to go through. If I can just change or show somebody a better path, and that's my calling. My calling is just showing by example, moving by like just more of showing and not just talking about it. Leading by example. There you go. I led my guys, a lot of the guys from the neighborhood, and a lot of guys that, or people that God had brought to my life. I led a lot of guys into destruction, into a lot of things that wasn't really what they claimed to be. So now it's like I try to lead my guys into a better way, where it's like, look, I found the route. So you know what I'm saying? Just the same way I showed you that, let me show you this. You know. So I tried to lead that way now. Well, by the grace of God, I was blessed with I was blessed with a restaurant that I was able to open uh 5 years ago. I was able to open 5 years ago. We've been in business and we've been growing by the grace of God. So I'm a restaurant owner slash executive chef, and I do podcasts now, a new endeavor. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like the days that were like are not anymore. Like you know, they're still trying to sell you this dream of getting rich off the streets. Man, yeah, you'll get some money, you'll make some money, but how long that's gonna last? That ain't gonna last too long. And just there's a different way, because I'm gonna tell you like this: I had a whole lot more money back then than I do now, but my money lasted more, stretches out more now than back then, if that makes any sense. So it's just there's a there's a power in doing good with your money. You know, that it's like, at the end of the day, it's not ours. It's God gives us this. So it's like, he gives me to give back. So it's just like you give, you receive without, he makes a way. Because Lord is my testimony, man. He's been making a way this whole time. Because a lot of these things, like in business now, where it's just like, a lot of these things were just brought to me by God. I take no credit on that. All grace to God, because I take no credit in that, because I wouldn't be here without that. Like, only God knew that I had to go through jail to be who I am today. So, I mean, and the same way that he's led me out of it, and he's gonna lead me to it. So that's my only thing. Like, God's gonna make the way. Put God first through it all. When you can't understand it, just put God first through it. Put God first when you can't understand it. And then one thing that actually, like, this guy that actually went and visited a church a couple years ago, and man, we were talking, and this guy, I've always had that in my heart, that I move that way now, where it's like, when you can't understand, just start to praise. When you can't figure it out, just start to praise. That's all. And I mean that's my routine. Just I praise God when I don't see the way. I praise him. Man, it hurt like hell, dude. It 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 made me feel lost. It made me feel scared. It made me feel vulnerable because it was like that was that man taught me. He taught me how to be a man. Like he taught me how to, fear thing. He taught me a lot. So it's just like he it made me feel real vulnerable, very scared, real scared. Just watching that person that I knew had my back. Like if ain't nobody else had it, he had my back. Not be there no more. So it's just like, and my mom is always there. So my mom is great too. But I mean, my dad was that backbone where it was like that was my sense of safeness, my net, and it was like just to know that net is gone, and and then just to know that made me feel like vulnerable. I was out. I was in and out of jail, mind you, but I wasn't in jail when my dad passed away. Um, I'm actually really thankful to God that I was able to talk to my dad and actually, because like I said, I mean, he even my dad and all that, but I was living wrong, and I was able to in my dad's deathbed apologize for the person that I had become because I wasn't I wasn't a pleasant person. So it was just like, and I knew my dad had raised me better. I chose that route, but I knew my dad had raised me better. My mom had raised me better, and yeah. I don't think I could ever feel him like as well as he did. But I mean, yeah, I mean, I found myself being that rock that my dad was to me, that my dad was to all of us. And it's like sometimes like when you can't understand it, the only person you can talk to is I take a ride to the cemetery because it's just like you try to get your creativity or you try to get your intellectual through like just expressing yourself to because it's like you don't really understand how much a person means to you until you lose them, or how much a person really does, like how much until you really lose them and you got to fill those shoes, and then you really start understanding and you really start thanking God for allowing you to have that person in your life. Crazy because my mom says this, my dad used to say this, like the consejos, the uh the like basically the advice they used to give you. Like I see myself now like being more like just emulating them. So I find myself like that. I find myself like emulating them with my kids, just raising my kids the way you know. And yeah, I'm always thinking of my dad, like but at the same time, it's like after my dad passed away, I found God, and it was like God is my father, so it's like that's the comforting. in it. My name is David Silva, and I have been forgiven.